Hi, everybody. As mentioned, my name is Edwina Portocarrero. I'm a PhD student at the MIT Media Lab. Thank you for being here. This is exciting, to say the least. The title of my talk is Thinking It There, Doing It Here, Networked Playscapes. The latest iteration of my brain was born and raised at the Media Lab, but my body and soul remain very much Mexican. So I'm kind of going to do a personal account of what it's been like to get plugged back into my hometown, Mexico City, the biggest megalopolis in Latin America, I think of all of America, to try to get things done in a developing world, so not quite a developed world. Why playgrounds and why playscapes? Well, for me, playgrounds, and I use the word playscapes because I think that they kind of break the grounds part and they kind of involve everything and everybody, are important because they are actually true community-generating spaces. When we talk about smart cities, we talk about how to integrate people from different backgrounds. And I think playgrounds and playscapes are places where that integration actually happens pretty seamlessly. But what's happening to playgrounds and what's happening to playscapes, if you do a quick Google search on playgrounds, this is what you find. You find these like standardized plastic kits that are kind of being put everywhere. And well, I think it's a pretty sad story when you think that the physical landscape is becoming this standardized kit. Not only play is not necessarily just physical, it's also digital. Children are playing very much behind a screen these days. I'm not here to condemn video games. I'm here to try to be able to merge what the virtues of digital play and physical play can bring into the physical public ludic space. Also, simultaneously, as everybody has seen during all these talks, there's all these movements happening that are empowering people to be creators instead of consumers, right? So if we have all these tools, I don't see why we are not building the public physical ludic space that we want. And it's funny because play and actually these movements have a lot in common as they are practices of production instead of consumption. But we still see these everywhere. And why do we see these everywhere where there's a billion materials that could be put to the service of play, just like kind of these playgrounds that we also see that in Boston, this is in Japan. And why do they have to be analog and why cannot they be connected when we have a bunch of amazing materials that also could be put to the service of play, as in sensors, inputs, and outputs? Well, that's kind of like the core of my thesis, right? It's creating these public network playscapes. And what happened ever since? Well, I got invited by the Chief Creative Officer of Mexico City, Gabriela Gomez Mons, to come and do my thesis outside of the Media Lab and into the real world, targeting 23 to 28 million people in a crazy city that I call home, although I haven't been home for at least 15 years, so it's also been a little bit of a cuckoo head trip for me. Laboratorio para la Ciudad is Gabriela Gomez Mons' creative think tank, and they take the city as a public good and a detonator of citizen talent. So they are trying to bridge citizen engagement with government. This is Mexico City, as seen last weekend from the window of a building that I went to kind of check out what I was, basically the bull that I had to hold by the horns. It's pretty daunting. And this is what you see in the streets of Mexico City. It's a different city. People in Mexico City appropriate the streets. Processes are pretty open. You see things happen. It's wild. There's markets happening everywhere. People engage with the city in a very different way that they do, at least for what I've witnessed in the United States. And this is just a glimpse of what my everyday in Mexico City is like. Just as parentheses, when I'm in Cambridge, where I'm in MIT, where I'm at the lab, if I need something, I go by bike, I go by foot, I take the T, it's no big deal. I get anywhere within half an hour. This is Mexico City rush hour. This is what I have to deal with every day. It's a very different story. And this is if you don't have a car, because if you have a car, you deal with this, right? So it takes about 3 hours to get what would get you half an hour elsewhere. Not only I'm a woman in Mexico City, which is also its own challenge, right? Like I have my own train, subway station, like my own cart where I have to go. And well, there's parts of the city that I cannot even visit by myself, right? So I have to get a team of people to go with me to ensure my safety if I want to get something done. And then there's bureaucracy, and bureaucracy. When you have an idea that it's kind of wild, it's really hard to get it through when you are trying to speak this language and not that language. And like the first thing that you have is hoops of fire right and left that you just have to go through. And well, right now it's monsoon weather. Nobody knows that Mexico City has a monsoon season. We have a monsoon season. It's crazy. It rains everywhere, making traffic even worse. And well, forget about Amazon, forget about McMastercard, forget about all these nice fancy things that we have in the US. In Mexico City, you have to walk the city, you have to walk the streets to get things done. And it's kind of cool because you've suddenly pulled powers that you didn't even know you had, like negotiation, trust, not to get fooled, knowing the real value of things. And this is my Home Depot. Home Depot is made of a bunch of different neighborhoods that I have to walk every day to get the parts that I need to get. These are the stores, these are my suppliers. This here is my McMastercard, which has taught me a lot about parts and what I need. Yeah, this is my everyday. These are my dealers. And these are my working spaces. It's coffee shops, it's pulquerias, it's cantinas, it's wherever I can sit to have a rest, to get things doing, and just, keep on working. And it's kind of great because you get embedded in the workplace that you are meant to be doing work with and work for. So you are not separated from the place. You are with the place, you are with the people, and you're getting ideas and feedback constantly. And when you engage people into the production of what you're doing, you actually get what they want, this guy here is my main designer. I would have never expected it, but it's amazing. And he never expected to be working in a project with me like that. So we are kind of cross-pollinating each other, and his engagement is way greater than anything that I had ever seen. Same with my electrical engineer, who doesn't have a degree, but he's a master of his craft, mechanical engineer. And again, just having the physicality of things available, right? It kind of sparks your constructivist brain into finding solutions to problems you didn't even know you had. And it's kind of nice to see how people display their goods also. And these are my fab labs. These are my maker spaces, right? I don't have a space to work. There is one maker space, which is in a private university that is really far away and is very hard to get access to. So I have to go person by person to solicit their help and to actually offer my services in exchange for a spot where I can work. This is my office. These are my neighboring offices. And well, when I got to Mexico City, it was clear that the first thing that I had to do is create a team. Otherwise, I would just drown, and I would be freaking out every night. So the first and most important team that I have is Laboratorio para la Ciudad, which is a group of designers, architects, urban planners that are helping me navigate the city as I go through with my work. I was lucky enough to get a grant between Mexico City and MIT, and I had get people from MIT to come and work with me. So this is Tyler Stevermer, who's a recent graduate from architecture at MIT. Also, obviously, getting Mexican talent into the equation. These are the 4 girls that I'm working with, 4 out of 5 industrial designers. And public-private sector, this is Coco Lab, which is a company that is amazing at doing interactive design. So what does a networked playscape mean in Mexico City? A playground fulfills different functions wherever you put it. Mexico City's biggest challenges are marginalization, segregation, and fear. Those are the things that we have to deal with. It's not immigration, it's not racial profiling as much as it is marginalization. So we have a map of Mexico City, and we have defined the areas that are more contrasting, that we call the city scars of Mexico City, where if you cross the avenue, basically you enter a different zone with its own lingo, with its own spiel, with its own everything, aesthetic, etc. So we're doing 3 different interventions that are aiming to connect these different marginalized zones in Mexico City. We're doing a nature intervention, an object-based intervention, and urban intervention. For the nature intervention, I'm piggybacking on a project that Gershon Dublon from the Media Lab and I created a little while ago called Listen Tree, where we basically grabbed a transducer and we screwed it to the root of a tree, transmitting vibration converted into sound onto the tree. So you can hear pre-recorded or live sound through the tree and its branches, making it a pretty seamless, some sort of playground. And because it's a display, you can do a scavenger hunt, you can do whatever you want. And people's actions and reactions in nature are pretty funky. It's really nice to see the amount of actual patience that teenagers have if you just give them the right display. And it does bring people together. So what we're doing with that's kind of the schematic of just very briefly how it works. And we're doing everything by hand. We're waterproofing everything by hand, doing the little dirt paths by hand, everything. That's the guts of the box and how it works. And what I'm doing in Mexico City is I'm linking the two biggest lungs of Mexico City, so the two biggest and most important forests of Mexico City. This one, Bosque de Chapultepec, is the fancy forest. It's where all the most important museums are, where the presidential house is, and it's surrounded by very fancy neighborhoods. And the other one, San Juan de Aragón, is completely the opposite story. It doesn't have funding. It is surrounded by some of the poorest neighborhoods in Mexico City, and the most dangerous ones too, and it's right next to the airport. So it's a trip to like see the big difference between both things. And of course, the aim of public network playscapes is to get across all sectors of society. So I'm engaged with the public sector, with the private sector, with government, with volunteers, with students, with everybody to make this happen. The next intervention is an urban-based intervention. Again, like trying to tap into the local idiosyncrasies of Mexico City. You can buy anything from a tricycle in Mexico City. From your breakfast to water to gas, everything gets delivered on a tricycle. These guys navigate the city and know it like there's no tomorrow. I cannot disclose much about what we're going to do with this one, but just think about a tricycle and think about exquisite corpses as, you know, surrealist games that they use for co-creation. And now think about navigating. I think I'm giving everything away. Think about navigating these city cars through these tricycles and inviting people to co-create. Again, engaging everybody for this one. And the last one is an object-based intervention, which is happening in a big metro subway station in Mexico City, that it's kind of a funnel. Once you get there, it kind of like separates into 4 different neighborhoods, one very different than the other. And we're using scaffold as the main thing because we want to be able to hack what is already in the urban landscape. And it's going to be something pretty big scale. And yeah, it's going to be networking those 4 areas of Mexico City. And again, getting everybody into this one. It's amazing the amount of negotiation you have to do. I think I've talked to every government sector in Mexico City to get permits going, to get anything from letters from students saying that they are working on this, validating right and left. You learn a lot when you get out into the real world. It's pretty crazy. And well, I just wanted to close with this quote by Jane Jacobs that says that cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody. And with that, I close. And yeah, thank you very much.